Well, Pope unfortunately got into some trouble. And today I'm going to share with you the story and how everything has turned out. Hi everybody, welcome back to Sawdust and Cornbread. I'm Laura Lee. If this is your first time as a guest on the channel, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I put out new content every week. I haven't given a duck update in a while, and I know that Pope is one of the fan favorites of all of the ducks. So adorable as a duckling, equally adorable as an adult duck now. And she is just so lovable, so sweet and adorable, and kind of mischievous. Let me preface all of this by saying that when I first saw Pope in the store and I saw this little fuzzy tuft on her head, she was just a tiny duckling I could hold in my hand, and I knew that little tuft is actually a birth defect. It's nothing tremendously detrimental, but it can mean there's some cognitive problems, there's some problems with her balance, and that kind of thing. That's just the price you pay when you get a duck with a cute little tuft or crest on its head. And some people actually breed them for this tuft or crest to show, because it is a beautiful feature. But sadly, it is a birth defect, and I mean, there's all kinds of birth defects in ducks, just like other animals and even humans. So I knew I was taking a chance. It could be that it was pressing on her brain a little bit, that she could have some cognitive effects from it as she grew older. And she is a special little duck. Now, she seems to walk just fine. She's not the brightest little bulb in the box. And we noticed one day that she had a wing that was sticking out really far, and she kept twitching it. And it's not too uncommon for the ducklings and even the ducks sometimes to kind of twitch their little stubby wings every now and then. But as we watched her twitching this wing, my daughter and I both realized that it was looking a little rugged on the ends. They get these little tiny pin feathers that come in before the feathers grow out. And these little stubs, or these little raggedy pin feathers, were sticking out there without any fluff around them, any down or anything. And I thought, well, it just hasn't come in yet. Well, as the day went on, I can see the ducks here from my window. I was watching her and I noticed it looked kind of pink. And I thought, well, that looks irritated or raw. So I took a closer look, and it scared me so bad, but she actually had blood dripping down those little pin feathers. And of course, my first fear, or my greatest fear, was a blood feather, which is basically a feather that has a main blood supply, a big vessel going to it that has been cut back somehow, injured, and a duck or a bird can bleed out pretty quickly. They're small bodied. There's not a whole lot to them, so it wouldn't take a lot of blood for them to get weak, anemic, and eventually they could die. So yeah, it was pretty concerning that my sweet little girl had blood coming out of this feather. So I came inside, I cleaned it up a little bit, put some flour on it. I didn't have any styptic powder. I have some styptic like sticks, like if you cut yourself shaving, you put it on there and it slows down the bleeding. And thankfully, I also prayed. I've been praying a lot over this little duck since I got her. We pray over the ducks all the time, any little thing, because they're my pets. They're not just a source of eggs, but I really love and enjoy them, and they're therapeutic as well. So after prayer and cleaning it up and putting that flour on there, I kept an eye on it for a few days. I didn't see any more blood. It scabbed over, which that presented a problem because at the end of those little pin feathers, there was a little black scab. And of course, any little black speck of anything, the ducks think it's a bug and they want to eat it up. So the other ducks kept kind of trying to peck at that little spot, not to be cruel, but just nature, they thought that a fly had landed on her or something. So I had to separate her for a little while, and I'm still watching that wing because she's still kind of twitching it every now and then, and it's got the scab on there. It's looking healthy. It's not bleeding. I realized after a while that wing was starting to stick out. They call it like an angel wing. There is a condition that ducks and chickens can get called angel wing, where the wing doesn't develop fully, and it's a little tiny wing, and it sticks up there rather than growing out normally and laying back against its body like it should. And I started getting concerned that maybe it was broken or she had a spring or something. So I got her up in my lap. She wasn't thrilled about it, but I slowly pulled that wing out, and I didn't see anything that was broken. But then when she retracted that wing, it went back to that funny position. So I did some digging. I did some research with Dr. Google and read other websites, some homesteaders and farmers and veterinarians. And good old Dr. Poole, I think is how you say the name, Dr. Poole. He has a TV show where he takes care of all kinds of animals. Dr. Poole, maybe? I'll have to look it up. But anyway, one of his videos came up with a duck with a broken wing. So I took a look at that to see how he handled it. And even though the wing wasn't broken, it was protruding out, and we wanted to train that wing to go back into place. And sure enough, he showed on there how you could take bandage, and it's kind of like the bandage that you would use for spraying on a human. It sticks to itself. And he showed how he actually wound that around the wing and around the duck's body and told them to keep it on there. I think he said 2 or 3 weeks, day and night, and then take it off. And the lady said, well, what happens if it comes off? And he said, well, you can use duct tape, which I thought was funny, but don't know how you'd get that duct tape off of a duck, but I could see how it would work. So we tried some bandage, and initially I just had some narrow, like ace type bandage, and we wrapped it around her whole body, and she just wiggled right out of that. It was totally horrible. It didn't last any time, and so my husband suggested that I go get some wider bandage, so I did that. Again, we tried to pin that whole wing down. We had to do both wings. It's hard to get just one wing. So we went around her whole body, and again, it was just a matter of maybe 20 minutes, and she had wiggled out of that, and it was coming off. So I did a little more research, found a few more videos, and there is a way to actually take that small part of wing together, and you wrap that with the bandage and then pull it back and wrap it around her body. So I was all by myself the next day. Everybody was at school or work or wherever, and I was able to wrangle her up, put her on the table, and then take those little pin feathers, make sure they were all where they should be, without spreading them out or kinking any. Tuck that little part of the wing under, and then I bandaged that nice and neat and tight, and she wasn't able to get that loose, and that gave me some traction to pin back that entire wing and both of her wings and go all the way around her body, and it held beautifully, thank goodness. So for about a day, I kept her out of the water, and I just couldn't stand. I mean, she had water to drink, but she loves to swim with and be with the other ducks, and I couldn't stand to see her not being able to enjoy the water. And I was a little nervous that she would sink with this bandage on, so I stayed right with her and slowly introduced her with the other ducks to the water, and she hopped right in and floated just fine, and the bandage stayed intact. And that night I was sure to get her out in time to let the bandage dry well before she went into the pen. We kept it in there overnight, and the next morning I wanted to check it out. So I unwrapped the bandage, and that wing was already staying in place. So again, I kept praying and just keeping a close eye on her, making sure the other ducks weren't pecking away at that scab to cause it to bleed anymore. And sure enough, it stayed right where it was supposed to be. It wasn't sticking up anymore. And so God healed my ducky. And the knowledge of Dr. Poole, thank you very much. I was able to bandage her up, and that helped her reset it or whatever the problem was. And now she is as good as new. She is as mischievous and curious as ever. As a matter of fact, had another scare the other morning. I had to put a little temporary fence around our blackberry bushes because we put all of the compost or the wood shavings from the duck house on the base of the blackberry bushes to fertilize them and as mulch, and dogs like to get into the duck dew. So I had to fence that off temporarily with one of those green plasticky landscaping fences, and it has holes that are big enough for the ducks normally to put their head in there if they want to eat a bug and get it back out. Didn't think about Pope and her nice big tuft of hair. Sure enough, she stuck her head in there, and that little tuft was able to bend backwards, and as soon as she got her head all the way through, it went boing, and it was sitting straight up on her head, so she couldn't pull her head back through the fence. I laugh now, then I was terrified. So I got my husband, I snipped the fence a little bit so that we could work it out. We probably could have pushed it down with our finger and worked our way out anyway, and we were able to get her head out. That little duck, she is just always getting into trouble, but thankfully she is safe and sound, happy as a lark, as happy as a duck in water, happy as a clam out in sea. Anyhow, she's fine. The ducks are doing great. Our two blue or Swedish blues, we rehomed to a great family that has lots of other ducks and animals so they could stay together. We have to keep our males down, the male to female ratio, so they don't bully up or gang up on the females. So right now we only have one male, and that is Ming Ming. He is the same age as Pope, so we're keeping an eye on him. He is rather large and almost goose-like. So far, he isn't causing too many problems with the female ducks, but if he gets too rowdy, we might have to rehome him as well because we want to keep everybody healthy and happy. So that's all for today. That's the story of Pope. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure, if you are new here, to subscribe, to comment. That helps the algorithm. Like the video. I put out new content every week. I do an anxiety attacks podcast for any of you who may be suffering with anxiety or depression. And I also do a lot of home DIY, cleaning, decorating, using what you have to make the home you want. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you next time. God bless.